breaking news. It is official as PJ Washington and the Mavericks have agreed to a contract extension. And I promised you the second that this news dropped, we would have you covered. And that is why you hit that subscribe button. As soon as Mavs breaking news happens, you'll find it right here on the channel at youtube.com/MavsTV. We cover the Mavs from start to finish, from the offseason to the regular season to the playoffs, the draft, and beyond, right here at Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. The Washington extension is official, and it is the numbers that we have expected it to be, as it is a 4-year, $90 million extension between PJ Washington and the Dallas Mavericks. I'm not a math major, but if you do that, it's right. Just north of $22 million per season on average annual value. And I think this was a great extension for the Dallas Mavericks, as you see Washington and his fellow extension teammate Daniel Gafford there in the photo. I think this was a great deal for both sides. The Mavericks wanted Washington long-term, and I think PJ wanted to stay in Dallas long-term. And I'm just very glad that he's locked in for the foreseeable future through the 2030 season. I didn't see if there was a player option on the final year of this deal as of filming, but I still think regardless whether it's a straight 4-year deal or a 3+1, either way, it works out great for both sides, as Washington really didn't want to go to free agency. He didn't want to be anywhere else besides Dallas, the place where he played his high school ball just up in Frisco, 30 minutes up the road, and it feels like the Mavericks wanted to keep him long term to be a leader of this team and usher them into the new era of Dallas Mavericks basketball. PJ stood on business, the Mavericks stood on business, and they get the deal done. Washington in 86 games with the Mavericks over a year and a half. He has played the best basketball of his career, and I don't think that's a difficult thing to say whatsoever. 13.7 points, 7.2 rebounds, 44.3% from the field, and 35.3% from three. And when the Mavericks acquired PJ from the Charlotte Hornets at the 2024 NBA trade deadline, I really was concerned about his long-term three-point shooting ability, as he never really did it a lot in Charlotte, but he was able to really get to work here with the Mavericks, and given how the Mavericks offense operated, he was able to get more open shots from three-point land, and he was able to knock them down with with a lot of consistency. And we knew what PJ was going to bring to the Dallas Mavericks on the defensive end of the court. He's the heart and soul of this squad. He is the guy he's the Energizer Bunny. He is the one that people rally around on the defensive end of the court. He's the one that's always celebrating blocks and celebrating steals and big defensive plays and deflections and whatnot. And that you need a guy like that on your squad if you're to be a serious contender here in the NBA. That's what PJ Washington is for the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm just very, very glad that he's locked up here long term. And we'll talk about more about the ramifications of this extension and what it might mean for the Mavericks here in the future. But I want you guys to get down in the comment section and grade the extension for me. A, B, C, D, or F down there in the comments. What do you give the PJ Washington 4-year for $90 million extension? I'm going to probably give it an A or a B plus, A minus, B plus. I really think that this is a good deal for both sides. So let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Washington is going to play, I think, as a starter and off the bench for the Mavericks this season, and it'll be interesting to see exactly how they deploy him. I think Jason Kidd, during the first 25, 30 games of the year, is really going to experiment with what his starting lineup will be, and while I think PJ will heavily factor into that, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be a starter. Let's go back to what Marc Stein had to say a couple of weeks ago regarding PJ Washington, where he said he's no longer an automatic starter in Dallas after the Mavericks won the draft lottery and selected Cooper Flagg, but Washington only just turned 27 and has no shortage of admirers in front offices around the league. And I think that's a good thing as well, that he's a valuable commodity to not only the Mavericks, but to other teams as well. And this contract absolutely does elevate his trade value. Now, I do want to note that since he signed this deal, he is not eligible to be traded this season. So Washington will be on the Mavericks through, at minimum, the 25-26 NBA season. This is unlike the Daniel Gafford situation where he signed the extension, but that did not have a trade restriction on it, so he can be traded right away. This one, Washington is guaranteed to be on the Mavericks through at least the 25-26 season, which is a good thing because there has been the rumor floating around that the Los Angeles Lakers are interested in PJ as a potential partner for Luka Doncic and that pick and roll offense over there in Los Angeles. Well, at least that can't happen for another year or so, but there is undeniable chemistry between these two. Luka and PJ were great teammates here in Dallas. They had one of the best pick and roll games in the NBA between a point guard and a 4. Usually your pick and roll is run between the point guard and the big man. Well, Washington was involved in that as well, and he was a great backdoor lob threat as well, as Luka would come off a pick and roll and Washington would come from the weak side and catch lobs. It certainly is a possibility that those guys would want to pair up again, but if I was Nico Harrison and I was the Dallas Mavericks, just please don't do business with those guys again. You just locked up one of your emotional, spiritual leaders, one of your best players on this team for 4 more seasons. Good God, please don't get rid of him after a season, and don't send him to the Los Angeles Lakers, who already fleeced you once. Don't get burned again by that team. Keep a good thing going, and PJ Washington is a good thing in a Mavericks uniform. I really hope he can stay for this entire contract and stay through 2030, and he's a Dallas Maverick for the majority of the prime of his career. That's my hope, and I really think that PJ is going to be great for this squad going forward. I don't want to see him in any other team's uniform, especially those damn Los Angeles Lakers. We'll get to the rest of the show here in just a moment, but I do need to shout out PrizePicks, which is today's sponsor of our show. I absolutely love playing PrizePicks, and PrizePicks is the absolute best place to play daily fantasy sports. And this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is officially here, and I cannot wait for week 1. You can just take 2 to 6 player stat projections, pick more or less, and watch the earnings roll in. Saquon Barkley, more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Joe Burrow, more or less than 2.5 passing touchdowns. Josh Allen, more or less than 270 passing yards. Those are just some of the projections you can see on PrizePicks, and it's super simple to play. It's the best place to get action in more than 40 states, including California, Georgia, and, of course, Texas. My projection for week 1 of football: I'm going to take the more on CD Lamb receptions. They're also take advantage of this Dak Prescott promotion they have going on. If you think Dak's going to throw for more than half a passing yard, you can just take the more there and pair it up. I'm also going to take the more on Devontae Smith rushing, receiving touchdowns, and I'll take the less on Javonte Williams rush attempts. So you can copy my picks or make a lineup of your own. Just please make sure you do it with our friends over at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, that is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it is good to be right. Just a few more thoughts on the PJ Washington contract extension, where the Mavericks really wanted coming into this offseason. They wanted to extend both Washington and Gafford, and they ended up getting it done. And I think that was their main goal after selecting Cooper Flagg this offseason, was to get those guys locked in long term. Now, there obviously were some rumors after the Mavericks won the 2025 NBA draft lottery and had the right to select Flagg that Washington could be on the move with just 1 year left on his deal and him being a potential valuable trade chip. But the Mavericks saw more value in him, in keeping him, and so they did. Look, PJ is a guy who I think could really ascend and could even just improve on the offensive numbers that you saw from last offseason. He was still really good this past season, averaging almost 14 points a game and shooting 35% from 3. But I do think that he could take another step. And if he still plays the amount of minutes that he played last season, which again may not be the case because of the addition of Cooper Flagg, I think he could really take his game to the next level, where you're maybe seeing a 17, 18 point a game scorer, a 37% 3-point shooter. And I could see a true elevation for Washington as one of the league's best role players. Shams Charania had this on the Washington extension just from a couple of moments ago. Washington was just one of 8 players to average 1 steal and 1 block last season among individuals to play at least 50 games, according to ESPN. Washington played 57 games, and he posted 14 double-doubles last season after a combined 10 over his previous 3 years. So last year was his best statistical season by far. And after the Luka trade, he really turned it on and was someone who kept this squad together. He provided the scoring, he provided the rebounding, he provided the defense as well. And they're going to need more of that this season in order for the Mavericks to really be a team that they think they can be. And maybe I'm lower on the Mavericks than most people are. They're going to have to fight. I really think they're going to have to fight to get into the playoffs here in the Western Conference. The West is loaded, more loaded than ever, and we know it's always loaded, but man, this year it looks like an absolute gauntlet. But the Mavs do have a significant amount of depth at wing. Now, they obviously waived Omax earlier last week, just a few days ago, but you still have Cooper Flagg and PJ Washington, who are going to be your main wings. And then off the bench, you have Najee Marshall and Caleb Martin. I loved Najee last year for Dallas, and Caleb really didn't work out last season, dealt with some injuries, had a weird hitch in his shot. It looked like he almost had the yips, but hopefully you can get a healthy Caleb Martin and you're able to get something out of him as well. And when you have these 4 wings that are going to be, basically you'll have at least 1, if not 2, on the court at all times. The Mavs are going to be a really, really staunchy defensive team. The only thing is, are they able to create enough shots to score enough points in order to win? I think that's going to be the main question, because you're not going to have Kyrie Irving for the first half of the season, even though Kyrie is already back on the court and working out. Who knows if they're going to be able to stay healthy with Dante Exum and D'Angelo Russell. D'Angelo Russell is going to be your starting point guard. Now, currently, I do have Kyrie listed there, obviously, but he is going to miss the first half of the year, so you can slide Russell into that starting point guard role. I'm not worried whatsoever about this team's ability to guard people. I am worried about this team's ability to create shots and to be able to make shots at an efficient clip on the offensive end. You are relying a lot on a guy in Anthony Davis who doesn't play very often because he's always hurt. You are relying a lot on an 18-year-old rookie in Cooper Flagg who does not turn 19 until December. And you're relying on D'Angelo Russell, who is a very inconsistent player who has shown the ability to be efficient. He shot 40% from 3 a couple of years ago, and he can also play make a little bit. But are we getting the D'Angelo Russell of the Lakers from 2023, or are we getting the D'Angelo Russell of last season with the Brooklyn Nets? That remains to be seen. But one thing I do know is PJ Washington is going to be a big part of things, whether or not the Mavericks make the postseason or not. I think Washington will certainly be a factor in that. Let's close today's show by showing PJ Washington some love. A 4-year, $90 million contract extension for our guy, PJ. Spam 25, his jersey number, down in the comments for Paul Washington Jr. That will do it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you for tuning in to Mavericks Today by Chat Sports. And, of course, if any Mavs news drops, you know where to find it here on the channel. But also give me a follow on Twitter, as you'll likely find the Mavericks news before it's posted on the channel at Jeff_Coop27. So without further ado, we'll see you guys soon. Hope everyone enjoys their Wednesday.